costumes I'd love to see in Marvel Rivals. Let me explain. I've made 3 videos in the last year talking about characters I'd love to see in Marvel Rivals, but now that the game is out, what about costumes I'd want to see? Because this isn't as hard to think about as characters or how they'd fit into the game, I'll be covering 6 costumes, starting with one that's very obvious if you watch my content, Classic Hawkeye. Now, there are actually quite a few suits that could be considered Clint's classic costume, such as his first appearance suit, or even this one, which many of you probably think of when I say classic costume. But I'd actually love to see one of the more modern takes on the costume in the game, specifically this one. The second suit that I'd like to see is pretty straightforward. I'd love to see Loki with his Agent of Asgard look. This was a pretty big change for Loki's costume at the time because this was a strange time for Loki, as he was no longer a villain but instead an anti-hero trying to stop his evil self. I love the look of this costume, and I think it would go great with the Loki model in-game. Third on the list is my favorite Captain America look, which is Bucky Barnes' costume. The only problem is I'm not sure who this skin would go to, as it's the costume Bucky wore, but it was specifically to be Captain America. I'm leaning towards Bucky, but I'd be happy either way. The fourth costume is very straightforward. I'd love to see Psylocke's current costume. I'm a sucker for simple suits that have jackets and compartments, and this checks those boxes. And the final 2 suits are both for Iron Man because I just couldn't choose one. Number 5 is Tony's current suit in his own solo series right now. If you're not keeping up, Tony has lost the rights to all Iron Man tech and now has a makeshift suit that looks like this, complete with the accessory that every suit needs, a big ass sword. It's a very bare bones suit but looks cool nonetheless, and I'd love to see it in the game. And the final costume is actually my favorite Iron Man armor, Dragon Slayer. Iron Man was created to be a modern day knight in shining armor, and I love when his armor reflects this, especially with this one. He also could have a very cool visual detail of his melee attack being a hard light joust instead of the energy sword he has currently.